Super cool. Even cooler for me. So we got the hood here, got the door. It's coming together in their last stages, and then got the bodies coming together. Came down to take a few measurements to see how things are going to fit correctly. And we got the trunk, we got the door, but you can see like there's little things like, I don't know if you can see it, but there's like a little nick right there. So this stuff, we'll fill that in. It's just little pieces here and there, but it's coming along. So in any case, it's looking good. I was talking about having a piece welded on the car, and this is the piece, and we're going to weld it something like, I don't know, something like that. And so I'll have my extra switches that I need, have this welded on. And you know, people are like, well, weld it first and paint it later. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to paint it first and then sand off what I don't need to weld and do that, because I think that's going to be a lot easier doing some touch-up than it is to spray this on the car and get it all over everything and stuff like that. So I don't weld, so maybe I'm being an idiot, but that's what I'm going to do. Alright, so we got a nice coat of primer going on this puppy, and after 30 minutes I found that I actually have the metallic engine paint that I use, which is actually really cool. It's a cool, nice black metallic, which you can see a little bit there. It's a little bit more shiny. So I'll give it a little pizzazz right under the dash instead of just the kind of satin flat black. So I'm going to use this. Should work out really nice. And we'll do that. And there you go. Looks really nice. So hopefully the welding doesn't jack it all up. Alright, today's the day. No more screwing around, you know, spending 20 hours, you know, working on this, getting it to where it's at. You know, that was all just child's play. Now it's actual time to actually do some work. Because, you know, the other 20 hours didn't matter. That was just setup. So, we cleaned everything up, got some space, got all my tools, all my paperwork. The new interesting thing is, here is a normal strap, and if you could see these, you can see a little reflection inside. These actually have some kind of steel or metal reinforcement inside, and these are really the ones you want. They'll last forever, supposedly. So I guess the black is also UV rated, so they'll hold up. But I was told that for this application that the little metal contraption in there is going to hold up way better than the plastic and never fail. So I would agree with that. I have my heat shrink, solder gun, butt joints, heat gun. I got everything here. So now I'm going to try to have a nice uninterrupted day. Actually focus, try to pull this all together. And, you know, in a perfect world, you'd probably do this in systems, but it's all going to the same place. And so I think I'm going to be doing it in what it is, like always positive hot, triggered hot, grounds, stuff like that, because there's nowhere to, like, it's all just here. There's nowhere to go. So we'll see how that plays out. And, you know, a lot of stuff like this is going to be going right here in my center console. So I got to make sure my tails are long enough to get to this panel, and then a lot of my connectors like this is actually staying right here because this is where the CPU is going. So it's a lot. Especially this one. It's an octopus. So we'll just figure it out, take it step by step. The other thing I came up with is, these are really cool because I could actually, without even pinching the wire, I could group all my positives together, and it's all in one spot and it ain't coming loose. So I'm going to try to use that to like organize a few things, get it all laid out, and then kind of implement. So I think a lot of research up front and then implementation later. To get the wires to this point, there's a lot of clips and stuff holding stuff to the wall, and I also have a lot of regular plastic tie downs tying stuff, which I think will now get replaced with the steel insert versions. But at least it's holding everything, and now I could just grab one of the steels and put it on there, and I could even leave the old plastic ones, it doesn't matter, as a backup. You know, I still need to get this pushed back a little bit to give us some room, which will be easy now because I got some clips on the wall that I could feed a tie strap through and pull it back. So the other thing I made sure I tried to do is all these fuses and relays coming out of the middle of the harness, which is really annoying, by the way. I made sure that they're on top of the trans tunnel and not buried somewhere way in deep if possible. And that's why it was so important for me to get the trans tunnel done first and get everything buttoned up beforehand, because I wanted to have other stuff laying on top. So that way if something went wrong, you had to change the fuse, well, it might be as simple as just pulling this panel back and sticking your hand in there, or worst case, taking this off, which is not the end of the world. You just gotta take everything off this panel and then pull this back, and then you have that, and maybe take the dash out, and you have full access to everything. So I'm trying to think of, you know, future stuff, because believe me, I understand I'm not winning any awards for this wiring job. I might win awards that it actually works, but it's not visually, it's, you know, it's not visually pleasing, and it's not going to be, just because the cable length is too long. And so statement I'm going to say is, knowing what I know now, it would have been probably better to hire someone to custom make a shorter harness for me in this specific scenario, even though I still want to run the same computer and all that stuff. I didn't know that. It's too late at this point to, you know, change gears, and so I think I'm going to make this work no problem. But knowing what I know, I would have went in a different direction. Would I have gone with some kind of carburetor type fuel injection system? Maybe. Just depends on what the car is and what the options were. But Do I really want to give up this? No. I think this is awesome. So I'd rather have a custom harness and then have exactly what I'd like to have on my engine. So that being said, if you had a carburetor engine, probably half of this wiring would be not here, so if not more. So it is what it is, and I'm going to stop procrastinating by talking and try to get some of this done. Alright, so I'm enjoying the new soldering technique of the butt joint solder and shrink wrap. It's really rock solid, man. Super rock solid. However, I'm not sure I have enough to do the job, and it's a weekend, so I'm not sure if I'll be able to get supplies in. But I do have a decent amount. Just not a lot for these, multiple bundles of wires coming in, which I was like, oh, that will just be a few, but I didn't really think about how much I'm going to cut down on the extra that's here. So a lot of this stuff I verified that the solder did work in these, and they're solid. I'm going to keep that. And now what I just did is I disconnected this harness from these wires going to the back of the car, because I need to shorten them all back in. And I just chopped all my wires here, and I left a little bit so I could color code it, so I don't have to know what it is. I just need to connect the dots, if you will, connect the colors. So we're going to shrink this up a little bit so there's not so much slack here, and I cut the sheathing back. So I'm just going to keep going. For this, I'm going to use my regular heat shrink solder joints and see if that works well for this application. Single wires. Alright, so we got, this is all my window switches, my reverse tail light, USB charger, wireless unit, and the safety default for the wireless unit, so it can't open anything while the car is actually on driving. So this used to be all over here, and now it's all cut back up into here, because my plate's going to be right here for everything to go into. So I didn't think that was such a huge job, but I actually redid everything and brought it all back. These used to be, I don't know, 8 inches out, and then all the rest of this was coming out, and so chopped it all back. So now what I have to do is get one of my main signal wires coming back, and I think that goes to this one, and then start connecting. And then, well, before I go into that, I have a positive and negative for all my switches, and then I have a positive and negative for my wireless system. So I'm kind of cleaning it up as much as possible. There's probably, 6 or 8 grounds that are already tied into each other via the switches, and then there's one ground coming out to actually connect. So I'm trimming it down as much as possible so there's only a few things coming out. And I could, tie these grounds and positives together right there, but I'm trying to make it as simple as possible, so I do have individual circuits, if you will, but we'll see how that goes. Yeah, it's a lot cleaner. You can see it's all going to fit in there. And now we got to start looking at all these other systems and start tying it together. But I think this is starting to look like something. So I'm pretty happy about it. We're starting to get to some complicated area, which is the air conditioning. Now I have a whole air conditioning relay system here, and the reason I have that is I don't have a clunky on and off switch. I have a push button, nice LED switch. Because of that, it's high enough amperage and voltage that I had to switch over to a relay. So I'm now taking the heater wires and figuring out what the length needs to be to get to there, and cut that in, along with these 2 red wires need to be spliced together. So it's we're going to try to get the air conditioning system kind of put together wire wise, and then from there we're going to start working on the rest of the harness. So you kind of can do one system at a time, and you kind of can't, because there's all these caveats in different systems. And like right now I'm in this wire harness, and it's like, well, some of these I might use, some of these I might not use, depending if I want to split out to different fuses and different things like that. Most of everything on this car, besides the main lights, and possibly even the main lights, well, the turn signals are all LEDs. So besides the main lights, there's not a lot of power juice, amperage going through the car. At least not on the light side, which most of my extra stuff is lights and LEDs and reverse lights and stuff like that. It's all LED. So courtesy lights, all LED. So it's getting a little complicated right now, but we're gonna keep pushing. So we just cut down our AC switch harness. I have one other wire that goes there that goes straight to ground, and I'm going to decide whether there's maybe another system for that or not sure, instead of putting it all together. And now we have to start looking at other things, like the rest of the stuff, and putting it together. These little bag holders and stuff are actually working out well for grouping cables that I might be able to bundle together, either to keep out of the way and organized, or actually all 3 of these get soldered together type of thing. So we're going to try to do that as much as possible and keep plugging on. But far as I know, I have all the HVAC stuff figured out. Everything's on the switches, everything else comes here. I have one thermostat, which I don't know where it's at. There should be a second thermostat, so maybe I gotta find that first. And then once I find that, I'll probably start looking at maybe the fuel pump and getting that wire switched over. And I think we're good from there. It is shrinking and shrinking and shrinking, and the last hour I'd say it shrunk pretty fast. Cut off a lot of extra stuff, and kind of making a little loom here of all my edits, if you will. At this point, I'm gonna stop for a second and I'm gonna just look around and search for some stray wire that is not connected to anything. I obviously have all my power and grounds coming down here, but you know, like, there's a few wires that are probably somewhere inside here that are missing, lost, and need to be found. So that's what I'm gonna do, and maybe I'm wrong, maybe I got everything. But one of the problems with coiling is I don't know, is this the trans harness power, is this the main harness power, stuff like that. So I'm trying to keep those so I actually know what's going on before I connect them. And I'll probably have to sit down for a little bit and verify, because there was something that I found, like, for instance, the reason I switched my power, fuel pump power was, I was like, well, when am I ever going to have the car on when I don't need the fuel pump on? And so I was like, I'll just leave it on the main harness. Well, it was annoying because whenever I'm troubleshooting or doing something like that, the frickin' fuel pump is going crazy. And so I was like, okay, now I get the reason why I want to switch it over to computer controlled. So I did that. Some people like to do the power steering on accessory mode, and that way they could just put the car in ACC and then they could steer the car if it's being towed, or what do they call that, a carry pull up or whatever, onto a trailer or whatever. So I was thinking actually that might be a really nice idea, and I had it on my main power you know, when the car started, so I might switch that over. So I'm going to take a few minutes to kind of kick back, look at all my systems, make sure that I'm, you know, putting the right ones on switch, the right ones on main power, the right ones on, you know, key ignition on, and just verify that everything's the way that I permanently want it, and go from there. So these are actually a hot and ground here too. So I just got to find how I'm going to do all this. And that's the other thing, is originally I had a block like this that I was using, and man, if I didn't have an air conditioner, sure, I could block this up, I could put my wireless unit here, I got the you know, put the switch up here, safety switch. With the air conditioner, I can't do any of that because all this is taken up with hoses and, you know, Freon and all that stuff. So it's just an absurdly amount of small space to try to make any of this work. And I'm just going to have to really think about it. At this point, I don't know if I'm going to have a terminal block or not. I'd like to actually have a terminal block for at least the battery power coming in, so if I needed to disconnect it for some reason, I could. So I don't know. We'll see. Where would that be? I have no freaking clue. But we're going to try to see if it comes together. And as I was staring across the car right now, I was looking at that little hole and I said, oh yeah, I need to get my hood popper routed through this stuff up and into the engine bay. And I had a dream about that last night, and here it is looking at me in the face. So before I permanently put everything in, I need to get that routed, figure out the length, chop it, and then reroute it and permanently put it in, and hopefully lock it to the frame somehow. So I'm saying this now, will I forget? I don't know. Alright, so we got some good damage done. My brain has stopped working at this point, and I'm close. I need to get all my powers and grounds kind of tied up where they need to go, but there's a few nuances with like the courtesy light power and some other things that are not making sense to me. And I have cheat sheets which tell me what to do, but I'm still going, why is that? So trying to be better safe than sorry, and I'm going to come back to this a different day. So, you know, I'm really close. I mean, I'm a good 90% of the way through, if not even more. So that's kind of the main thing that's going to happen. And then I'm going to put the air conditioner in and then start all over because nothing's going to fit. That might happen. So if I could get this to come in and down, then there should be room for me to tag on one of these. See, it shows that there's space, but the reality is that space is here. So I gotta get this in, down. So we'll see, but I'm feeling pretty good. I didn't find any extraneous wires. However, I did notice that there's a few things that, you know, if they're not laying in the car or they're not by the car, then they don't exist, and I wire everything up. And then I'm like, oh, the cup holder, forgot about that. So now I have to create, so I got two little pigtails, and since the cup holder is built into the console, it needs to be removable. So I need to be able to have, you know, connectors on that. So it's stuff like that I'm just like, oh, what about the, you know, reverse taillights? Is that in? You know, what about this? Is that in? So little extra systems that are not in the manual. It's all custom stuff that I wanted to add. So I just got to verify I have all that stuff in, and should be good to go.